This pattern caught my eye because of all the design possibilities it presented, and I knew it was worth sharing with the Love of Quilting audience.
On this episode, we map out the essentials of foundation piecing to help you create elaborate blocks with ease.
And you'll learn how to make it your own with different layouts, so make sure you stick around.
Hello and welcome to the 3900 series of Love of Quilting. I'm Sarah Gallegos.
And I'm Angela Huffman.
And today Angela has a beautiful paper piece quilt to share with us.
Isn't this pretty?
It's very pretty.
This one is called Dancing Leaves. It's made by Shannon Arnstein, and she did a beautiful job pulling together some gorgeous fabrics into a paper piecing project that I want to walk through with you today.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So the first thing to notice when you have a paper pieced project is you want to make copies. And in this case, this pattern, we need 100 copies of both the leaf design as well as the stem. So this is what we are after. And if you notice, these are all headed in one direction and these are in the other.
Right.
So just remember that you're going to get a reverse of the pattern
When you are stitching it.
when you are stitching it. Yeah. So when you make the copies, you obviously want to pay attention to size because that's going to be super helpful when you put it together, right?
Absolutely.
And so there's a little test square here that's printed on the pattern, and this says it's a 1 inch by a 1 inch square. And so when you make your copies, make sure that that does measure 1 inch by 1 inch.
Start with one copy, measure, and then do the other 99 if it's correct.
That would be bad.
Right.
Right. And so once you have the right size, you're going to cut apart these two pieces because they actually get paper pieced in two sections.
Okay.
So if you would grab that over there, I have them already cut apart.
Two little segments.
Two little segments. And so I'm just going to put our little stem friend over here. And I'm going to put him over here because we're going to work with just this portion of the pattern first.
Sure.
And so let's talk about fabric, right? So when you paper piece, especially if it's your first time paper piecing, I can't recommend highly enough to stick with batik fabrics.
Yeah.
And so let's take a look. The cool thing about batik fabrics is they are the same whether you're looking at the front or the back of the fabric. And it is so easy, especially when you first get going with paper piecing,
To flip one.
to put one on upside down. You don't notice it until you go to press it open and then you,
Right.
So with batik, you don't even have to have that as part of your brain. It's just not necessary to even think about.
I think with paper piecing, it's good to buy extra fabric too. Do you feel like you use a lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anytime it's good to buy extra fabric.
I agree.
So if you notice on the pattern itself, that it gives you a lot of information. So what we have here is we have, it's numbered. So there's 1 is yellow, and 2 is blue, and 3 is blue, and 4 is gold. So you want to pay attention to the numbers for sure.
Right. We are stitching by number.
We are, yeah. And so the first one we're going to do is a yellow. And so I've got this yellow here. And then I just want to make sure that it covers that whole space. And so if you have a light box, that's really the kind of easiest way to make sure that you have this lined up correctly, because that first piece needs to cover that first section entirely.
Right.
And then the next one that we're going to put on is this number 2 blue. Sometimes it's hard to see the darker colors through the pattern,
Right.
or you may not have a light box. And so one of the ways to kind of help you kind of line that up is to go ahead and fold on that line. And I've just got a piece of cardstock here. And so if you want to go ahead and fold that back on that line, and then when we slide this under, it's just so much easier to make sure that we have it lined up. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can have some slop to
So
it.
you're making sure that you have, at least 1/4 of an inch hanging beyond the edge of your fold. And that's
Right.
where we stitch.
All right, so let's go ahead. If you would put a pin in it, because of course, as soon as we move it, everything's going to shift.
And just kind of get it out of the way of your seam line here.
Yep. Okay.
There we go.
And then we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to stitch on that printed line between 1 and 2. And I just want to be sure we got both sections because I think we've moved that blue a little bit.
I jumbled it up a little bit when I was pinning.
I'm just going to move it down some. And then I'm going to double check it because as soon as you move something,
Then it's out of alignment.
then it's out of alignment. So let's just make sure. Yeah, so I have it far away from the area we're going to stitch, which is between 1 and 2. And we have enough of the yellow showing. All right, so let's go ahead. And I just want to make sure I do have enough of that yellow showing because I think I need to adjust it one more time. All right, and then on the machine itself, we're going to change the stitch length because I want to go with a really short stitch. And what stitch do you use to piece with?
Usually between 2 and 2.5.
So your sewing machine is going to have a place where you can adjust how tight, how close together, how small your stitches are.
Right.
And for paper piecing, I want to drop it down, and I tend to go with like a 1.5.
Yeah.
What do you go with for?
I like 1.5. I think that sounds good. I think
Yeah.
I was kind of like 1.8 or 2, but 1.5. The reason that you were doing that is those closer together stitches perforate the paper and make it a little easier to remove later. Not ideal for piecing if you ever have to unsew something, but great for paper piecing.